Hey builders, Lisa Pickell's in the house, first she builder. I'm freaking stoked to have her. I'm in a business group with her. I think she's, I think she's super wise. Reminder to the fans, for those that are like, what's Kevin doing? I didn't want to be a podcaster, but I have some things that need to be said. So here we are saying them. So our goal is to elevate the trades. Thanks for listening. Welcome, Lisa Pickell. Thanks for putting up with me and being here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Great. So I gave you no primer, I don't think. So thanks for jumping in. I want to be very clear. So we met, you're a mentor of mine in our Vistage group. I'll have you tell your story. I want to go through kind of your view of construction. You're going to be my first she builder. But to answer your question, that should be obvious, is what the heck is Kevin doing? I partnered with Kyle Nitchin. Don't know if you know him. Influential project manager, super cool. I'd look his stuff up. I was actually recruiting him, and then we're like, hey, let's do a podcast. And then here we are. The goal of the show is just to elevate the trades and kind of like give clarity, like two missions. Is just like make the trades cool again, and also tell the consumer what they don't know about the trades. Because like construction, in my opinion, is everything, and nobody gets the credit they deserve. Right, the roads that people drive on, the buildings that people go into, everything started with construction, in my opinion. And I think just want to pay homage and garner some of the respect. So that's what we're doing, and it should be fun. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, happy to be here. Nice to be. Like, it's always nice talking to you. And I think you're being kind for calling me a mentor. I don't think that's fair.
I think it's more than fair. Yeah, I get a lot of where I am as a result of the feedback that you've given me through all my issue processing. But so, are we popping your podcast, Jerry? Have you been on one before? Is this a podcast number?
I think so. I did like one of these Riverside things with Francine for her stuff, for her recruitment videos.
Yeah.
And I think I was interviewed by like a person who does podcasts, but I thought it was a video, not a podcast, because we were like in person and things like that. So I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm guessing yes. I think so.
Very good. Well, for the audience, I never wanted to be a podcaster, but I feel like there's a voice missing. So I'm trying to go breathe that voice into existence. So let's clarify that. So let's just start with who's Lisa Pickell. Give me your like high level journey, and then I'll dig into kind of the builder side of the story. But all I know for now, what's been really fun about doing this is the people that I call friends. I learn more about this. I'm amazed at how little I know, when I make them tell their story. So I'll get you just an intro. You are CEO, correct, of the company?
President.
Is that
President
of Orren Pickell Builders, custom home builder, design build firm in Chicago, and you run that with your brother, right?
Yes, we work together. Eric's in the process. Eric Pickell is my brother. He's in the process of moving from a sales role to operations role. And my folks have kind of gradually, or my dad, who was the founder, has kind of gradually worked out of the business over the last 10 years or so.
Sweet. I'll interrogate you about all things Orren Pickell. But for now, Lisa, born at a date in a place, and take me to present day, however you want to take me there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's way far back. Why don't we start with just kind of the basics? I think that because my father was the founder, right? He was an entrepreneur. And I'm going to actually start with him a little bit, in the sense that he is my friend, my mentor, my dad, my boss, all of those things all at the same time. And his life journey I'm going to start with him, actually. So he went to kind of got into a little bit of carpentry and things like that through his father. Went to Bradley University to study project management, and, was working in the summer times as a painter. Realized that, after his sophomore year, he's like, I make more money in the summer times doing this than many of my friends' fathers do on an annual basis. Like, I don't really know why I'm paying to go to school. So my dad dropped out. He met my mother there. She dropped out a little while later. So neither one of my folks graduated from college. And they started the business together. My dad at first, he had several mentors throughout his life in the construction trades. But he started his own business, started as a partnership, and then ultimately was his own firm. So I grew up very much around construction sites. I grew up on piles of mud down the street. Those were our playgrounds when I was a kid, and walking through job sites, picking up the knockouts from electrical boxes and thinking they were money and making bracelets out of low voltage wire. So I've been around job sites literally my whole life. And I think through that, and through probably my father's influence, but without pressure, I would say, I loved being around it. I always did. I think that being a part of building someone's home and being a part of that process, regardless of their budget and what it is that they're building, is an incredibly special thing. There's very few people, or I would say most people in the world, the biggest bill that they have is their rent, their mortgage, et cetera. And that's a good thing, as long as we're not talking about medical bills and things like that. We spend a lot of time, a lot of money on our homes and our dwellings, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just kind of how our culture is, I would say, to a certain extent. And to be able to be a part of that is a real honor. And that is how I think about that. I think that through design, we can influence how people live in their homes, which are where you raise your children and invite your grandchildren back, and newlyweds get to know each other better, and all of those things that a home can become. And to be able to participate in that process, I always really love that idea. I studied drafting in high school, worked part-time in the family business during high school, and then went to Miami University, where I studied business and architecture and art and architectural history. I'm going to say fortunate to realize that I would not make a great architect. About 2 years into it, I studied architecture officially for 2 years. I loved it. I loved being around it, but I did not have the patience for all-nighters, and I could stay up all night, and I can definitely focus. It just was not my thing. I was okay at it. I wasn't great at it. And I like to move around. I would rather be a Jack or Jill of all trades than a master of none. And I feel that architecture, to be great, you really need to stay incredibly focused and incredibly honed at one thing, which is not what I am good at, and I'm still not good at, quite frankly. So I feel very fortunate in that I learned that lesson young. I do probably wish that I would have finished the degree, just because I think staying curious and learning is also important, but I wanted to get into the workforce as soon as possible. I didn't want to stay in school any longer than I needed to. So I graduated in 4 years, and then I went to work for a design build firm named B. Hall Sampson Dietz in Columbus, Ohio. And it was like one of the best first jobs anybody could have asked for. They let me work in every department, from site management, project engineering, accounting, IT, design, cabinetry design. They let me just kind of anything that I was curious about, or however I could help, they let me do. And it was awesome. I think and I only spent a couple years there. By the time I left, the president of the company, in a company meeting, kind of said, "I think the only person that's worked in more departments in this company than me is Lisa." So it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience working with them. And I think a part of that journey was because I kind of knew, right? I went to school knowing that I wanted to be in this business, which is a very unusual thing. I think of that as a gift as well. And not in a bad way or a good way, just in a very different. I think a lot of kids, go to school kind of wanting to figure out what they want to do. And I think that is awesome. And I just wasn't that. I kind of went to school knowing I think I kind of know what I want to do. And that's what that early part of my journey looked like. And so when I got the job in Columbus, I knew that I wanted to work somewhere outside of our family business, because nepotism is a real thing. There's pros and there's cons to that. I was trying to decide. I'm like, I know you, it was good. I don't know how to facilitate a conversation. Yeah. Do I just keep talking? I don't know what to do. Well, there were two great moments there. Well, the whole thing was great, particularly the knockouts. Like I wish if I was a real professional, I'd have somebody show what that is. Cause I too collected they're like little size things, and you think they're special and worth something. And you also kind of know that they're not. That's funny, but they're not. I think you said you finished your 4 degree, and I'm sometimes, how I am about listening. You said, I wish I would have finished the degree. So did you start architecture and then switch to business? Yeah, actually, I was doing both at the same time. So I I did 4 years of business, and then my sophomore year, I added architecture as an additional degree, and I did 2 years of architecture, my sophomore and junior year, and then I studied abroad my senior year, where I studied business and art and architectural history and photography in Italy. And I realized after going to Europe for that long that I did not want to come back and be in school for another year and a half. So I dropped architecture, and I graduated with a degree in business and a minor in art and architectural history and a minor in law.
Okay.
All in 4 years. So I did a lot of school and not a lot of time.
And I think your story is an inspiration for many, particularly women in the trades. Like just listening to it, I'm like, wow. So you are studying all things, but you also said that you knew you were coming back to the company. So for the whole time, you knew at some time I'm going back to family business. So talk to me about, because I used to take criticism all the time. It's like, why are you even here if you're just going to go back to the family? So like, talk to me about your mindset through that.
Yeah, I think that I think it's important to recognize that I never, and a lot of people ask me this, I never felt pressured to enter back to the family business. I always just liked it, right? Like I liked being on job sites. Like I liked the fact that we built something. I liked the fact that we produced something that you could actually see and it was tangible. I remember having like early conversations with my dad because I wanted to be an entrepreneur too, just like my dad and my friend and my mentor. And he was like, before you go start your own building firm, why don't you take a look at this one that's already been built? And think about that. And it was like, well, I don't, I want to go do my own thing. Like I want to cut my own path in this world. And I think that's partly why too, I went to go work for another firm in Columbus. Like one, we're a big enough company that nobody in the Chicagoland market would hire me, because I would be working for their competitor potentially. And it's a real thing to go make sure that you like something outside the pressures of your family and that you're good at it. Those are both very important to me to understand before getting into the family business. So while it was not required that I go work for someone else, I wanted to go work for someone else first.
But yeah, I think it's also unique that my dad that wasn't really an option. My dad didn't even want me to go to school, but I think your dad's a little bit, I always get nervous. My dad's going to watch this because I dog him all the time. I love your dad. But my dad wasn't a thoughtful enough leader to see the value in like letting me go do something else. But so I think I'm still a little hazy on because you said, so you knew you wanted to build homes, not necessarily the family business.
Yeah, I think that's probably, and I think that I like the idea of the family business. I like what we did. We design and build custom homes. So we're at the high end of the market. I would say there's a whole nother echelon above us. In regard to where we fit in regard to size and scope of projects. I knew that I loved, being around homes and design. I didn't know exactly at that age, like how I fit into that and where my skill sets were. College did help me figure that out. I think doing 2 years of architecture and realizing I don't like this. I'd rather move on to the next thing than sit here and noodle and redo and noodle and redo and noodle and redo. And I think that a lot of great architects find excitement, right, in that kind of further refining and really looking for the best in something. And I'm more of I think that's good enough. Like, let's move on to the next thing. And there's a need for that in our world too, right? Yeah. So I think what college helped me figure out was where I fit in. And then that first job that allowed me to do so many different things within a small business was absolutely instrumental in helping me figure out, what am I good at? Like, what's my niche within this industry? Because there are so many things you can do in the construction industry. And I think that was the part I wasn't sure at, and I wasn't sure what I was really good at and where I could be the most helpful and make the most contribution.
So interesting. So then, and I want to, because I think there's another level of the audience that I think will be like the family business aspect is so hard. So so your dad was always encouraging, always supportive, always inviting, but you felt no pressure. So you also had a very strong relationship with your father, which is unique and special, it sounds like. But so you go to school and you say, Dad, I'm going to go work for somebody else. And it's like, sweet? Or was there like he's totally good with that?
Yeah, honestly, I think that I think what my parents would say is that I'm a little bit of both of them. I'm a little of my dad and a little of my mom, and they would say the best parts. I think that the best parts of you are also the worst parts about you, so you can think on that too. But
I agree. I totally agree.
Right?
Yep.
So I got the best and the worst from both of my parents.
Yeah. All wrapped up in one.
Yep, exactly. No, they were super supportive. And I was offered a job to come back to Pickell Builders, like right out of college. I worked part-time in the summer and things like that. So I knew a lot of the leadership in the organization, a lot of the managers in the organization, and they loved having me around. And I always felt like that. But there's a big difference between really knowing if you're there because you're the boss's daughter or if because you're really good at something. And I felt it was really important. And I think my parents agreed. I think that there's enough space in this world. And I think they hoped that I would come back. And I did, and I really enjoyed Columbus, but I love Chicago. This is my family. I mean, my family's here. Like I give architectural tours of the city. Like I love this city. Like Chicago is my happy place for family, friends, architecture, all of the things above. And, yeah, so Columbus was like a wonderful, like next step, like almost like a gap year, if you will, for me to go kind of think through a lot of those things before coming back and dealing with and I don't mean dealing with because that sounds like a negative. Like there's positives and negatives to working in a family business, but they complicate things. I think particularly when you're young, it's probably if anybody ever asked me about whether their kids should get involved in a family business or they should get involved in a family business, I don't think I could think of a bigger piece of advice or, that I could give someone is just go try it somewhere else first and make sure you really like it. Make sure you're good at it. And then that's what you want to do, because once you're in it with your family, it gets even harder. It's always hard. It's always difficult to leave a job. It is even harder to leave when your family's involved, and it's exponentially harder if that's a decision that you at some point need to make. And obviously, that's usually when you enter a family business, that's not where you want it to go. But it's a thing.
I think it's sage advice. I think particularly for the adults, the older generation, like enabling that, I would force it. I don't have kids. Neither of us do. Hey, this is fun. Finally I get a kid or two. But if I did, I would absolutely. They got to go get their own experience, come on their terms. But I think, were you always, I'm assuming this, and I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but were you always a high achieving student? I assume that about you, or were you a C gets degrees?
I would say I was a high B student. If I really liked something, I would easily get an A. And if I was not interested in it, I could easily get a C, and I just would not care.
So you were a smart student. My story, and you'll hear, the biggest waste of time ever was I got straight A's, and it wasn't because I was smart. I got them like my first quarter in the hardest, the introduction business class, like nobody gets an A, and I got an A. And then I was like obsessed with not letting go of it. It was the biggest waste of time of my whole life. It says nothing about my intelligence. Other than I'm stupid enough to go work hard at school, that doesn't matter. But so I think, though, what is very inspirational about your story is were you just lucky and the first job where you get all this vast experience, or did you drive that? Like, I mean, the owner said that about you, so there was but I think there was something about that. There's other people I've talked to is like going and getting a vast amount of experience as soon as you can is like, gotta set conditions for a really good, everlasting career. So how did you unlock that code?
Yeah, I think I was pretty intentional in narrow in what I was looking for, right? I was looking for a company that I knew that I was going to learn a lot from. I kind of knew that I was likely going to spend a few years, and what a few years meant, like when you're 22, who knows, but I knew I wanted to work somewhere else. I knew that I likely wanted to go back into the family business. Back in Chicago. And that really does narrow things down. Really, I only applied to like 2 jobs out of college, and one never even called me back, which, not a knock on them, was Toll Brothers. They have a really robust project
management. They still owe us money from Hohe. They still owe us money. You didn't want to work for. They still owe my dad money from before I even knew what owing money was. Those bastards. Yeah. No, and I mean, Toll Brothers, I'm coming to collect.
Yeah, I don't know them from Adam, to be honest with you, but I mean, I was that person who went to, this was in Columbus, and I went to a job. I went to several job trailers and dropped off resumes. Hey, I'm really interested in this program. I know I didn't go to the schools that they typically recruit from. Can you help me get a foot in the door? And I never heard back from any of them. So it was probably for the best. But I really, when I say, when I get stuck on something, again, strengths and weaknesses, man. So I tried to get into their project management program to no avail. And then I really did look for smaller high-end construction companies, in a select geography, in a handful of select geographies where I knew I'd be okay. I had some friends there. I didn't want to move to a city all on my own. Like I'm outgoing, but I'm not that outgoing. And I found this job in Columbus. And during the interview, another thing that I kind of remember was I went in and it was for like an associate project engineer, which is kind of like a entry level project coordinator or project manager in the office side. And I interviewed with him and I thought it went pretty well. And the owner left and he came back in. He's like, I got to be honest with you, we weren't really planning on hiring anybody yet. We thought this was going to take a while, but I think we're just going to give you an offer like right now. I'm like, okay, great.
Nice.
So it worked out really, really well. I graduated and started like 4 days after college graduation with no money. And, I think my parents gave me $1,000 check as a good luck and a bill that they were willing to write off my college education.
Nice. So you got credit terms. Okay, wait, but I got to dig. There's so much I want to dig into. I'm going to forget. So forgive me. But you went out and asserted yourself, which makes me want to ask about like the perception of family business versus the reality of it, because I think that's profound. But I still want to key in on you went, asserted yourself, all these resumes, pursuing, got to go make your own path, which is, I call it the prove it season. I think every young human has to go, achieving person wants to go through the prove it season. But how did you get in an organization? Because I don't think this is a linear thought for most. And I assume the journey sounded like most of my A players is like you got in, you did something excellently, and then they moved you around and just applied you at problems because you were good at whatever you were working on. That would be my assumption. But how did you manage to get into every department?
Yeah, I think at 22, you're not good at anything yet. You're okay. And you have attitude and aptitude is what we look for here. And I think at 22, I had a lot of attitude and aptitude where I was very curious. I didn't like sitting idle. So if I was bored, I wouldn't just sit there. I'd be like, you know what? I finished what you asked me to do. What do you want me to do now? So when another department was really busy and the part that I was in was slow, it was, well, I'll do that. I mean, like, no problem. Right. So it's, the way I got into being a site superintendent was because one of the superintendent who ran the job went on vacation for 2 weeks and I babysat the job for 2 weeks and I liked it. And they said, you did a really nice job these 2 weeks. Why don't we move you to this other job that's under construction right now? And you can site manage that one. And I said, great, sounds good. The IT stuff, like we're just a little business and we needed to do a server switch over, and probably because I was 22 and one of the younger people in the office, it was like, oh, these kids know more about computers than anybody else. I was like, great, we'll figure it out. No problem. Design would get really busy and it was like, I've got extra time. Like, let me help draft. So I learned AutoCAD and learned how to draft and of course I wasn't as fast as everybody else, but if I was just going to sit there, why not? And I learned something. And by the time I left there, I could draft just as fast as a drafter could. So I think it's that attitude and aptitude and just willing to raise your hand and say, hey, like, how else can I help? Like, what else can I do? Was the how. And I think that's up to each individual, and maybe there's a hesitancy to, like, oh, if they know I'm not that busy, then maybe they're not going to need me. I would say the exact opposite. I mean, if you're not that busy and you're willing to raise your hand and help in other departments, help in other areas, and you're willing to learn, like that's the most valuable type of employee I could think of.
Now I'm curious, how would you, if you were like one sentence or your key adjective, is a very hard question. So I'm coming in with a heater here. Like your greatest strength when you think about it. I have 2 words written. I want to see if I get close. But like when you think of Lisa Pickell, like why I consider you a very lethal weapon for any company to have. But what do you think enables that? And like if you get to dote on yourself for 1 minute, what's your greatest strength? I know you're going to be humble here, so just live into it.
I would say like I'm curious to a fault, and I'm also like a little stubborn. It's like a little stubborn. I'm not good at just sitting still.
I love the curiosity because in my future life, I'm going to be a big deacon of curiosity. I think it's the human enabler. Like hint for people that clue into my stuff and stick with me, because it's like the absolute, like people's imagination is like what we've diminished and people don't have it. But I wrote down as you were like like for the kids at home that are like, I want to be like Lisa when I grow up, like opportunistic assertiveness is what I heard. It's like just every opportunity that was in front of your face, you went and took it and got it. So that's super cool. Man, I don't think you're going to have to come for episode 2 as I'm like looking at this, I'm making note. So for people that want to come and see Chicago, and it's really funny, I must have hurt your feelings the way I talk about Chicago. I can't appreciate any city.
Okay.
I can't appreciate any city.
I know.
So I'm a city bigot. So this is me publicly apologizing to you and Woody for talking crap about Chicago. I can't appreciate when you put me in a place with loud noises and I can't park my truck. I am just angry. It doesn't matter how pretty the building is. But I do want to come on your tour. I feel like a shitty friend that I haven't. But when are you there? When do you lead the tour? Tell us about your tour so people can come see Chicago with Chicago's greatest tour guide.
Yeah. So I've always felt extremely lucky in that I think I had 2, but I only have 1 now. I've said for a long time that I had 2 of the coolest volunteer jobs in the city of Chicago, and neither one have I got paid for. The first one was very short-lived, and I'm hoping to get back to it, which was scuba diving at the Shed Aquarium, like as a diver, which is really, really a unique experience. But COVID has still kind of wreaked some havoc on that. So I hope that job is not over, but it's on hiatus right now. The other one that I've done for 10 years now, I actually just got my little red tenure coat, is I am a docent or tour guide with the Chicago Architecture Center. And I spend a lot of my extra time and energy helping an absolutely phenomenal organization help people understand why design matters. Now I wear a lot of hats, but the way that I got into it is probably one of my favorite stories about the CAC, in that my great aunt, Dorothy, she's actually my great great aunt, Dorothy, was a docent for a very long time. And this was probably 15 years ago now. She said, if you're going to live in the city and you love architecture, why don't you do this? And I was like, that sounds really interesting. So I went, and this was probably, I think I became a docent in 15. So this was probably 2012. I went to the information night, and they kind of looked at me, because at the time it was a lot of retirees, and they kind of looked at me, and I think I was 32 at the time. And they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I want to be a docent. They were like, you don't have time for this. And I was like, you don't know me. How do you know if I don't have time for this or not? And they then announced that they were only going to do trainings for new docents on Tuesdays, which fits right in with having a core of retirees who can take off 10 Tuesdays in a row to learn how to be a docent. So I did not have the ability to take off 2 weeks of time to do that. So the next year I came back, and I said, can I be a docent now? And they said, we're going to revamp all of our educational programs. We're not even going to train anybody. So that was year 2. And then year 3, I finally got back. I was like, how about now? Can I please be a docent now? And they said, okay. So you interview. And I got into the interview program, and I started as a walking tour docent in 2015. And then in 2016, I trained to give river cruises, which is what I primarily do now on the docent side of things. I'm also a mentor, I help train and mentor new river cruise docents on an annual basis. I'm on the Docent Council, which is the governing body of the 400 plus volunteers. And then I'm also on the board of trustees with the Chicago Architecture Center, kind of the big board of the oversight board. So I love the CAC, which loves our city and loves to help people understand why design matters.
CAC, Chicago
Architecture Center. Yes.
Got it. And that's where your tours are run out of?
Yes. So it's a First Lady are the boats, and the chicagoarchitecture.org is where you go get your tickets. I do about one a week, I would say. You
emerge out of this with a bunch of She Builder fans, and the whole female construction industry wants to come see Lisa, or you got some suitors that want to trick their way onto the boat and take you on a date. Can we find you, or it's all random?
Yeah, it's all random. So you can find me. Like I can send it to you if if you have somebody who reaches out to you, I can certainly get in my schedule, but I don't publish it or anything like that. There's about 3,000 cruises, I think, that go out on an annual basis. Or no, maybe even 4,000 cruises. So
I got no interest in going on a tour with any docent but you, Lisa.
No, they're all very, very good. I've trained some of them, so they're all very good, but I appreciate that. I think I would be a little offended if you went out with somebody other than me.
I wouldn't. It would. But what's a docent? You got to tell me the dumb fence digger, docent. Is that French?
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
I think it comes from, so when you think about going through like an art gallery or something like that, the docent would be the person who would lead you through to look at all the different art. So I think the CAC kind of adopted that word as a docent rather than a tour guide, to show you kind of the architecture and art of the city of Chicago.
That's so cool. I freaking hate architecture. I also hate the city, and I'm like inspired to go. I want to go see it. Legitimately, I wouldn't lie to you. I'm like, this is stupid that I haven't gone. All right, cool. So docent, and then you're on the, geez, I didn't know you did all that. Like you're what's that saying? Like you don't let moss grow under you or whatever?
Yeah, so like something about a rolling stone or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or moss under your feet. I don't know.
You are. Okay, so I interrupted your story. So we talked about, what did we miss that you want to tell? I have a few other questions, but I want to make sure that I don't miss any from your she builder. So you got me to Bahal Sampson Teets Builders.
Bahal Sampson Teets. Yep.
Yep.
So that was Columbus. So I spent a couple of years there as like a side project. When I was in Columbus, I bought a house and lived in it with a guy that I worked with. So we were friends. We were, just friends. But that was kind of our project. So we remodeled the kitchen and painted the exterior. So that was kind of our side hustle project while I lived in Columbus. I think many people in this industry kind of get into like, let's just try it, right? So we did that. My first house, I think I bought with Mike was his name. I was 23, maybe something like that. I was pretty young. I think we each put in like $3,500 or something like that. It was
nice.
Crazy that you could buy a house like that, and they'd let a 23-year-old do that, but they did. So that was Columbus, and then I was pretty upfront with Bahal Sampson Teets that I wanted to go back to Chicago eventually. And I did that. So about 2.5 years or so after starting there, I came back to Chicago. Mike and I sold the house in Columbus, made a little money on it, which was great. And then I've been back in Chicago since 2004, I think, is when I came back, just in time to see the stock market crash and the Great Recession and all of those wonderful, wonderful things to go through in your mid-20s, which you learn a lot from the down as much as you learn from the up.
I want to talk about like your ups and downs as an entrepreneur, but I guess I'm going to pause here just like as we talk about like you're coming into the trades. You always had a passion for it because you're around it. I think what I struggle with, and I don't know if this relates for you, like I find it, my favorite thing is to bring people into the trades. Like I love when I bring like medical professional, because there's so much to appreciate about the trades. Because it's like I don't want, like, it's not like finance or any. It's like a pure industry. Like there's no insurance. I mean, there's ugly sides of it. But like, so if you were speaking to, and I don't know if this goes out to my 10-person network, but to females that are discontent in their industry that want to switch, I think everybody has this like, you can't switch industries, or you're talking to high school students, and it doesn't have to be tailored to females in the workspace wanting to switch, or any young adults that are like thinking about getting into the trades. What would you warn them? What would you urge them? What would be your recommendation? And maybe you got to go two different explanations.
No, yeah.
Two different audiences.
I would say, I think one of my favorite things about the trades is like, if you're not into, I'm going to call it traditional education, I think that the concepts around mentorship is one of the best and most powerful things about what it is that we do. I think so much of the learning happens like on a person-to-person basis. And I think that the construction industry is something that is a skill. So even if you ever wanted to buy your own home at some point, right? If I was talking to a young person, let's say that this winds up not being the thing for you forever. The skills that you will learn are directly correlated to your own personal life, right? Because the odds of you living in some kind of shelter at some point in your life are extremely high. And the way that you can learn does not take class. You can just jump right in and just be curious right away. You don't need a lot of formal education or training. Now that can be a good thing and a bad thing, which means there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't know what they're doing. But that also means that there's a lot of people out there that do know what they're doing. So yeah. I think that, again, just like our strengths and our weaknesses, right? The strengths and the weaknesses in the construction industry, they're oftentimes the same thing. It's a relatively low barrier to entry to get into. And that is a good and a bad thing. Finding a great mentor is is huge. And I don't care if you're female or male, it doesn't matter. But having somebody that can advocate for you, that was willing to take the time to teach you, is, I think, the reason that I still love this industry, and the reason that I like giving back to this industry is because of all the things that other people have taught me through the years that I feel I owe to people now, to some regard. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you because now I'm curious, because I'm here. I'm kind of here. You're here because I don't think, and unless you tell me otherwise, because you're more association versed than me, but have you found an appropriate medium that isn't like one of the things I hate is we've shifted from consultants nonsense to coaching nonsense and skipped mentoring good sense, right? And so have you found an outlet, like, other than, mentoring how many people work for you guys without subs? I know you've got hundreds with subs.
Yeah, we're at about 35 people now.
That's awesome. Kudos.
It's very varied. We have architects we have guys that can't read and write in English, and then we have architects with dual master's degrees. So there's a lot of variety in that 35 of backgrounds and education and things like that too. So
I'm going to I want to dig into that. The people that don't have degrees and can't write, those are my people. I identify with those people. The people with dual masters, those are the foreign. I don't understand them. But have you found an outlet to mentor outside of the 35, or is the 35 kind of? I always talk about. I think you've heard me talk about like sphere of influence. Like, have you found an effective way? Like, and I haven't. So if you know of one, I'm curious, because that's partly why I'm here. That's why you're here today, is to mentor the youth.
And I think, and I hate to sound, I'm going to sound like an old person right now, but I don't care, because I do think it's a little different. I think that the recession in 06, 07, 08, 09, however many years you want to put on it, dramatically changed our business. When I came back to Chicago, one of the areas that I found enormous amounts of support and mentorship was through the Home Builders Association of Greater Chicago, like HVAGC. It was an enormous chapter. I think it was one of the biggest in the country. It had thousands of members. In Chicago. And I don't know what their membership is today, but it is significantly smaller. It is not as robust as what it was. And I think that in general, a lot of that 2006, 2007 changed our industry in a way that I don't think that most people fully understand. And it's still wreaking havoc. And I know it's like, God, why are you still talking about that? It's because it's still impacting us. Like when in 2006, 2007, I was in my mid 20s, right? And the first people to lose their jobs were people my age. I would say one of that nepotism I talked about, I think one of the biggest reasons that, and again, I was very good at my job, so I would like to think that I wouldn't have gotten laid off, but I can't guarantee that. People that were great at their jobs were getting laid off because, we went from 150 people down to 20 during that time period. It didn't matter if you were good at your job to a certain extent. There just wasn't enough work for all of those people. So a lot of people my age at the time who were in their 20s, maybe early 30s, they left. They were young enough. Like, I can go be a consultant. I can go be a jewelry salesman. I can go be an IT professional, right? It was like you were young and nimble enough to just leave the industry. Those people, they were gone, right? They were the ones that were laid off. A lot of the guys that stuck around, and I say men because our industry is mostly men, they were in their 50s at that time period, right? 40s and 50s. And they kind of hunkered down. They held on to their knowledge base. They kept the guys that had been around for a long time and knew what needed to get done. And they could work as lean as possible with as few people as possible to get through what they needed to get through. Those guys now are retiring, right? They're leaving our industry right now. So those are the people that should be my mentor, right? Now I'm getting in a position, my age, right? I'm in my mid 40s now, where I should be mentoring that next generation. And there's just not very many of us. Like, it's being about this age is a little bit unicorny in the sense that so many people left during that time period. And at the same time, the people that are a half a generation, those Gen Xers, they were the ones that were really laid off, and really it was hard for them to go find new jobs, right? So you're talking about an electrician, a plumber that didn't work for several years. And now their children are the ones that are, should I get in the construction industry right now? There's no way. There's very few parents at that age that are going to say, you know what? The construction industry really treated me well during that time period. I think you should go be an electrician. So you've got a retiring generation, a generation that's telling the next generation, don't go do this, a generation that left, that had to leave, didn't have a choice. It had choices, but went and did something else. That's a very thin, very small group of people. that's now their responsibility to do that mentoring. And they're just stretched really thin because there just aren't a lot of people. So when I talk about that 06-07 recession, the implications to that was not a 5-year thing. It was a multi-generational impact that our industry is still feeling today.
It's really interesting that you bring up the association, because I actually made my debut in the world because somebody came out attacking our association, which for all intents and purposes is like less than. But we just did a podcast on a different show about kind of, I don't know, it's really difficult for the association to be effective. I think they've kind of lost their way because they used to be the information source, right? So I think you were hinting at that's where you went to kind of be mentored and get mentorship. And then I think the internet had a lot to do with like the association's purpose has been lost. And I'm speaking for me, and because I don't want to rant, but it's hard to be an effective association if the only thing you can't talk about is pricing. And it's like, that's dumb. Like, we need to get over that. Like the antitrust law, because like the only thing a junior fencer, for us anyway, needs help with is how, like we need to talk about P&L, how to cost things and how to make money. And like, that's the only thing we can't do. So it's a big stalwart. But so I just want to make sure that I receive this right. You don't know of anything that's like, that you can go sign up for and mentor youth into construction. I don't. I was wondering, like, is there programs that you're...
Yeah, there are some programs, and particularly, so one of the things that we work with is through the high schools, actually, is some of their trade programs now. Lake County Tech Campus has a really great program. So essentially, it's a part of their tech campus. So any of the Lake County school systems, you have the opportunity that you can do I think it's up to 3 years. I think you can enter as a sophomore. I know you can do junior and senior year, which is a part of their building trades programs that gives like a really great high level overview of what they're doing. I know like the Palatine Friend school districts does something similar where they actually build a house every other year. So your first year or second year, depending on what year you're entering as a junior or senior, will either be finishes or pulling the house out of the ground. The school system then sells that house and then puts the money back into the program to go buy land and the materials to build another home. I believe Evanston also does a program like that. So for high school kids, there's actually some really neat building trades programs that because I work with all of them, I know like the Palatine Friend group, there again, just a lot of variety and like economic backgrounds. There's kids that are probably going to go on a 4-year path and study architecture. There's kids in those programs that are definitely they're going to join the workforce, like right out of high school. So they're really great opportunities, and the teachers there are just phenomenal. Like I've met with many of them. They care about their kids. They're engaging. And it's a really, really neat programs. Those are the ones that I'm aware of. There might be other programs too, that through the high schools. I think where we get a little lost sometimes, there's a lot of mechanical trade programs through some of the schools again, like through CLC and things like that. But if you wanted to go be a carpenter, if you wanted to, go learn how to, concrete, masonry, it's a lot of hard work, but really it's about that mentorship. It's about finding a company and asking around and be like, hey, who's looking for somebody with some attitude and aptitude where I can go learn? And you're going to be a grunt for a while, but you know what? You'll learn a lot that way about what works and what doesn't work. And again, it's hard work, but you gotta be willing to raise your hand and you gotta go look. You gotta get up and go. Particularly in some of those trades. Like I would say, if somebody was looking, I would say go work for Kevin because he's going to train you, he's going to mentor you, he's going to teach you about the industry.
I'd say the same. Thanks for the plug. Let's pick up. I wouldn't let them come to me first. They get a real professional education from Pickell. They'll learn the rough and dirty way from me. But
they're both necessary. Trust me.
I'm gonna keep us moving because I have more that I want to talk to you about than we're gonna have time for. So I think that 2 topics I want to make sure we get into, and then I kind of got my standard leadership questions, and then we should be probably wrapped up. But I don't get into, we're not getting into politics, but I think there's a like, other than the golf course, I think the trades is one of the last to be female friendly, and it pisses me off. It like pisses me off. Like I have women that work for me that are sitting in the seat that can't get questions answered unless I or another male. And so I don't want to paint the picture. I don't think it's rampant. I don't think it's awful. I think it's getting better, but just, obviously, we're a very male-dominated industry, and I think that's starting to change. But any wisdom that you could say, like, have you experienced any of that? And how do you navigate that?
I think everyone's going to be different. You're absolutely right. I think that I looked this up a while ago. You can look it up through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and maybe that would be something that we should both do. I think when I was in my 20s, like kind of getting in the industry, females I think were 11% in the construction industry. So it was extremely low. Architecture, though, on the other side it's very much closer to 50-50 now. So, and I know that those are kind of different, but very much related parts of the industry. And I think seeing more women in architecture will help seeing more women in construction as well. I think that mentorship component, that who's helping you make those decisions as to what you want to do with the rest of your life. I think a lot of times it's men with men, right? I think that what I think my dad would say about this is that women have a tendency, I think women do have a tendency to do better in traditional schooling methodologies than lots of little boys do. I think little boys get distracted a little bit easier than little girls sometimes. And, our school system's really geared towards gender differences. I think there probably are some biases. While I am not an expert in that by any stretch, nor would I pretend to be, I think that there are some of those things. And the trades, I think, have a tendency to kind of lean more towards, you just jump in and do it. You just got to try it. You got to raise your hand. And you have to feel comfortable enough to do that. And I think because I worked for a family business, like when I was in high school and college, I was never made to feel like it made a difference if I was a female or not. I did work in the office more than I worked in the field, which is, again, if you see women in construction, it's more and more, I should say less and less. You'll see women occasionally out in the field, but most of the time, the women are more office side of things than field side of things, but not all the time. Like I said, I was a site manager. Probably one of my favorite stories about that was, again, when I worked in Columbus, Ohio. I was a site manager for the very first time. And I was doing, it was probably like $1.5 million interior renovation was most of the scope of work. And I took over from another super who was going to do another project. And I started as the site manager. I would think I was probably 22 or 23 years old. And one of the, and you could tell no one really wanted me there. It was all men. I was the only female on the job site. The landscape architect was a woman. She was amazing. And yet my boss, right, the manager, his name was Mark Roby. He had absolutely no issue with me like being there. He thought it was amazing. He loved it. He had my back at every turn. And I think because he had my back, I had the confidence to be there and do that job. By the time that project was over, I had, I would sit, all the guys would sit during their breaks in the garage and eat their lunches. And I would sit in the basement at my laptop. And, I definitely did not feel very included, but I was okay with it.
They're probably scared of you, Lisa. They probably didn't know what to do.
I don't know what.
They're probably, there's this cute girl on the job site. We're going to get arrested, or do I have to talk to her? We don't.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know what to do with me. And I say that because at the very end of the job, one of the there's always kind of your thought leaders, who's really kind of in charge in these job sites and who's been around the block. One of those thought leader guys was one of the painters. And he pulled me aside and he just flat out told me, he's like, Lisa, he's like, I was not excited that you were going to be here. He's like, I've never worked with a woman, much less for a woman on a job site. Like in my entire career, I have never worked on a job site where there was a woman present. And I did not like the idea. I will tell you this, I would work on any one of your job sites. He's like, it was clean, it was organized, I loved it, you've changed my mind. So sometimes, again, you just got to dive in. And I know that there's a lot of really smart, thoughtful women that, it can be really uncomfortable for a little bit. And ultimately, it's okay. And I think that there was a lot of women before me that took, candidly, a lot more shit than I ever had to. Like, I never felt harassed. I never had to deal with any of those things. I felt maybe a little lonely on occasion, and I didn't get to eat my lunch with everybody. But you get over that, right? And eventually you do get treated just like one of the guys, like everybody else, because they trust you, right? You've built trust with them. So give it time, be patient, and don't give up. I would say to any woman that wants to be in the field. And you know what, if we're really being honest, you got to be really good. You got to be better than everybody else to a certain extent. And don't be afraid of that.
That's so rich. I want to get, there's like, I'm going to have to, so we have 2 podcasts actually. We're doing this and then XYZ philosophy where we talk.
You're busier than I
am. No, it's funny. I didn't want to do this. I want to make everybody know I didn't. The last thing I want to be as a podcaster, but I think we'll get into it. I'm going to bring you on XY because we're going to talk faith. I'd love to dig into like, the men versus women, the whole like devastation of the nuclear, the whole thing. Like, I think your perspective is so cool, but we're just not going to have time. I'm not even going to be, I don't even think we're going to have time to talk about your business because I'm going to screw this up, but that's okay. But what I think is I'm going to try to get there, but more important to me than your business, I don't mean nothing's more important than your business other than your well-being. But for our audience, I think like for you to kind of take down the curtain and like, most of the consumers you're talking to, you have to sell something. So there's a general unnatural hostility. I don't want to call it that, but you want something for me. So when you can just peel back that curtain and you're talking to nobody that you're trying to sell a house to, like, what would you tell people? Because I'll speak. I don't think I used to always bring this example of everybody thinks it's like ordering a sandwich. Like they don't understand we have to dig in their yard and shit's going to happen. Like we don't have a LiDAR. So if you put a sprinkler by the fence, like we didn't know, like we didn't. So generally I find that people think that they're going to buy a sandwich and it should just, schedule. And like, frankly, we're also not, our trades aren't like, we're not that good at certain things. So what would you general kind of like construction 101, you're a design builder, consumers that's either doing a remodel or going to go do a design build. And I do think we're going to have some reach with this, Lisa, when it gets going. So like, don't be shy to put a plug in for your company, why you guys are different and all that here. But generally speaking, what should a consumer know?
What does a consumer know? Like I would say, if I was going to give my friend, right, like let's say they were going to build a house in another part of the country that we don't buy. Great
framework. Great framing. That's what I wanted. That's what I should have said if I was good at it. Good job.
Perfect. I would say interview around, like, and build with somebody you're going to trust, because that you're going to spend years with this company. And you're going to have a hard decision, you're going to have something neither of you like, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get through that. And if you can trust each other and if you can trust who you're working with, it will go a lot smoother. And I recognize that building trust is a difficult thing, and that it is a hard thing to ask, but you should be looking for not only, you want a good value, of course, and the way that we define value is not just about price, but it is about quality and price, right? So those are opposite ends of the seesaw oftentimes. So you have to think about all of those things and find the value that you're looking for from a quality perspective, from a price perspective, and find someone that you're going to trust and enjoy working with, because it could be and it should be a really fun process. And there will be hard parts, right? Just like some of the best things in life, right? They've got amazing parts and they've got hard parts. Building a house is going to be, or doing a remodel project is going to be just like that too. And if you can get through those hard times and trust the people that you're working with, it will make the whole process less stressful and much, much, much more enjoyable. It'll make the product better in the end too. Because whomever you choose to work with, they are going to know more than you. They are going to know more than whatever you can find online. I would never try and compare what we do to doctors, but I have so much empathy for a doctor talking to somebody when they come in with their WebMD, like already loaded up. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think most people in our industry get into this because they love what they do. They're passionate about it. And they, to some extent, and I know what we say is we want to make the world a better place. And we can do that if we're allowed to help people. It becomes the most arduous when that trust is broken for whatever reason that is. That is not a good place to be.
Yeah. So and like you said, it's so multifaceted. I could bring, we could probably go, and I may bother you to come on here and do the whole Consumer 101 series, but you're a design builder. So for those that don't know, right, that means like you come to Lisa, you guys walk them through design, and then if all goes well and everything goes the way I would assume you want it to, you end up building the house. Sometimes you design them and somebody else builds them. One of my buddies that I will bring on here, his advice was something along the lines of like, if you're not going to go to a design builder, because a lot of times people start with architects first, and I'm curious your take on this, but his sentiment was like, get the builder involved as you design so that you don't go design and then have to redesign. And then I'm wondering though, as you're nodding your head yes because it's all audio, so you're nodding your head yes. I'm wondering though, can I say this? I sometimes I'm too absolute and too dramatic, but any architect worth their salt would encourage and or force you in order to have a successful project to come with the builder? Or why is that not just a kind of if we all know that's better, why is that not just standard? And sometimes we do it backwards.
So we are a design build firm, which means we have architects in-house and we're general contractors. I will also, I'm going to back up a little bit too, in that like our history at Orren Pickell Building Group is we were general contractors first, and then we added architecture. When I worked at B. Hill Sampson Dietz, they were architects first, and then added general contracting. And I say that because even like the subtle differences and the nuances of like kind of who's in charge, if you will, at BSD, like there was a lot more. The architect kind of led the show. At Building Group, we have a dividing line, right? Where the first part, architecture is very in charge, and then the superintendent is very much in charge. So different design build firms, depending on their roots, if you will, might even approach this topic differently. When it comes to your question as to why, right? Why would an architect, why would a person not bring on the general contractor? I'll be honest, we fight with this sometimes. And I don't mean fight like internally. I mean, fight like, it's just I think that the design process is generally a lot more fun than the build process, right? The build process is where it gets hard, it gets expensive, right? It can be a little bit more arduous. And I don't care what it is or how great you are, right? I think that is just a universal truth. I've seen it a million times over. And I think sometimes what happens with architects, and I've seen our own architects do this, it's like, well, they told us our budget was X, right? But they asked for Y and they don't match, right? It's like, okay, the time to have that conversation is now, not later. And sometimes we're very good at it. And sometimes, the client it's like, no, but I really like it. Let's just see where the pricing comes in. And one of the best things about working with a design build firm is that we have the ability to fairly accurately predict how much your project's going to cost, right? Which is an enormous component when you're talking about, for most people, the most expensive thing you're ever going to do. Okay. So even in our own firm, we're having this battle right now on a project where the client wants a home with two primary bedroom and bathrooms on the first floor. So a really big footprint and so ranches and big footprints are very expensive, right? Because you got to put all that concrete, you got to dig a hole, like the roof is bigger, right? All of the things that really drive substantive cost are how big is the footprint of your house and what's the ratio of how much floor plan is on your first floor to your second floor, right? And they're telling us they want a very specific budget. And the budget we've given them is $500,000 higher than that. And architecture is but that's what they want. They don't want to change anything. And I'm looking at them saying, shrink that footprint. Like, if you don't shrink that footprint, they're not going to build this house, because they've also said they want to be at this number, not that number. So we need to have a big conversation with them sooner than later. And right now is the good time to have it. Once we've already finished construction documents, bid it out and say, oh, look at that. We're within 1% of where we thought we were going to be. Like, do you want to spend this? And they say, no, we've been telling you the whole time that we wanted to spend this, not this. How could you have done this to us? And when you don't have a builder involved, that happens a lot. And I think what that allows an architect to do is well, that's what you wanted. That's what you asked for. I did. Remember, we talked about the fact that this was going to be more expensive. And it kind of allows you to skirt those tough conversations. Now, I can't say for certainty that that's why somebody's doing that, but that would be my guess.
I find the problem to be, as you think, you want to go shopping. So then you got to have a plan. So then you rush and get your plan, and then you go shopping, and then you realize your plan was no good. And then it's this whole yeah, right. You hit on it. Everything, you got to start with the people you trust and do business with the people you trust. And I could get into. Do you guys do GMP, guaranteed max price, or how do you guys you do?
Yeah, we do a guaranteed max price with an open book margin. So we tell you what our margin is up front before you even start design. We bid everything competitively with 2 to 3 bidders, sometimes 4 in each phase, so that you can see those competitive bids. And then we apply our margin against it. And then we work with you to value engineer because we're design in-house, and we give you updated budgets through the whole process. So, we can have a front elevation and a floor plan and get pretty close, to with a reasonable level of finish and say, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking for level of finish based on the photos you showed us. This is roughly what we're looking at. What do you think? And some people are saying, great, let's do that. Like in the case of this particular project, they're lovely people, but it's like they have a very specific number, which is going to be hard to build for the design that they want. And they keep bringing in pictures of the Ritz-Carlton in Fiji. It's like, that doesn't fit.
No, you can't buy a Ferrari on a Honda budget. No.
Right. But, and we're at the very beginning of, we're like in the middle of design. We're like, we're not even going to move forward until we figure out what we're going to do here, because we are not aligned.
So one more thing on this, and then I want to get into leadership with you. And then I'm sorry, I'm going to drag you back here because I want to talk about more things with you. So sucks to suck. You're going to have to come back, or you can tell me no. I guess you can. I appreciate you coming though. So I've watched, and I'm an innocent bystander, and I've often thought that like it would be a fun little business. And I probably won't do it because I have me. I have plenty of ideas. This is not one.
I don't know. This is a good conversation.
Well, no, I've watched some people build. I call them the hotel class, which I like the hotel class of a home, right? And I've watched it and I've heard about it, and I've yet to hear, and I don't take this the wrong. I've yet to hear a romantic "we love our builder" story. I have consistently heard a catastrophic like. It's always like it's a big to do. And I think to myself, and I'm like, the white collar people just don't know how to talk blue collar. Like, it's like there's like a communication gap. But I know you said a lot earlier, but like, why is that commonplace? And like, what could we do if you and I said, like, we need to fix the image and like prevent that occurrence? Obviously a weak association doesn't help, but what, like, because I know that's not always the case. You don't hear, if you build your home with no hiccup, nobody talks about it, right? It's the old, but like, as soon as you have a problem, everybody hears about it. So yeah, impose your wisdom on me.
You know what? I just heard something the other day. This was a few months ago, maybe, but I love it. And it makes so much sense to me. It's like, what people remember? They don't remember the fall. They remember the bounce. How are you going to recover, right, when something goes wrong? I think that we live in a world today where it is really difficult to have thoughtful, hard conversations, and people avoid them. The worst thing you can ever do with a hard conversation is avoid that conversation. You can go with it in sympathy and empathy and an apology, any way that you need to, but you have to have the conversation sooner rather than later, because if you kick the can on that conversation, and I don't care when it is or what it is, it will only get worse. And I think that sometimes our builders have a tendency, to not want to do that, right? It's like they're more afraid of the conversation than they are just to have that honest conversation thoughtfully and get through it and make sure that trust remains intact. Then, or it's like, what, I'll just eat it. I'll just pay for it, right? And you do that enough times, and now you're working for free. And that's not fun, and that's not fair. So having a reasonable, thoughtful conversation and coming up with a fair, reasonable solution. And sometimes fair and reasonable, neither one of you are happy about, to be clear. But you've got clarity on it, and you know how to move forward sooner rather than later. So that if something arises later, you either set the groundwork for how to deal with it, right? Because you set some ground rules. Yeah, it's that hard conversation, and you can't avoid it. You just got to do it.
That's that was not a question that warranted like a quick answer, but thank you. I think you nailed it. I would say I did not. You're coming back. I don't care, Lisa. You got to come back. But okay, before I let you go, I call it my builder's book, my standard questions. So I've got 4 or 5 that you have to answer, and then 5 more that you pick one, or you can answer as many of them as you want.
Okay. Yep.
So they're not easy, but define good leadership. If you got to define it in your eyes, you're obviously a successful leader, which we didn't talk about, but you are. What is good leadership in its definition for you?
For me, good leadership is creating alignment amongst your team, or whatever that looks like. And that could be your client, that could be your subs, that could be your employees, that could be your family. Alignment and direction is probably the most important parts of leadership to me. Love it.
A lot of people have a much harder time answering that question. So you're a student of the game. I'm not surprised.
I've got a lot of opinions. I hope we make them right.
Yeah, well, you're gonna come out here and breathe them into existence, because I think more people need to hear it myself. Most important when you think of there's so many traits. The military's got the JJ, or Marine Corps has JJ type buckle. Like, what are the key ones for you when you think of like somebody you want to embody or are willing to serve under? What traits does that leader have to embody?
I think of mentorship. I know that's a very broad term, but generally, like when I think of mentorship, it's like, man, I want to be like them, right? So what am I going to learn from them? Like, what are they willing to give me? Like, if from I will give you my time and my energy and my attitude and my aptitude, and I need knowledge from you. I need to. I think that that give and take is a really important part of being a good leader. Is that everybody's replaceable, and you should always kind of be working on replacing yourself to a certain extent. I don't know if I answered the question, but
you answered it perfectly. Work on replacing yourself. I've taken a lot of heat in that Vistage group because I've been pretty adamant.
Like, I'm trying, man.
I've been replacing myself far too soon, far too often. But anyway, I love that. Okay. Favorite part of the construction industry, if you only get to pick one?
Oh, well, I think I mentioned, I started with it. It's helping people, make their lives better through design and being a part of this amazing process, right? That it's usually a very big decision. This is not I'm buying it on Instagram type of a purchase. These are thoughtful, hard decisions that people are choosing to spend enormous amounts of time and a lot of their hard-earned money with you. And being chosen to get to do that is an amazing honor. It's an amazing honor.
Yeah, you got to sprinkle. I was like looking at your website. Yeah, you should plaster that. It's like really it's like very sentimental. I'm such a shallow guy. I don't normally. It's like very sentimental and meaningful. And I want you to build my house. Like,
I'm going to tell Patrick that.
That's your purpose? Like, is that the purpose? Do you guys have? I see your mission statement. Do you guys
our defined purpose is like to build better lives for our clients and our employees.
Yeah, to build better life. I think we got to get more sentimental in here with that. If I can, I just think that's like the way you speak about it is like, it hits me. People are going to think I brought you on here to gas you up. I don't have any agenda. That's really cool. I think that's really cool. And then on the other side, if you could change anything, and I think we might have hit in this, but if Lisa Pickell was the ruler of the construction world for a day, and you could make any change, what would it be?
What would it be? I wish there was more mentors out there. I wish there was more guys like my dad that really were willing to share their knowledge, and help. What I would love more than anything else is I think that our industry gets a bad rap. Right. It's like the best parts and the worst parts, right? Those low barriers to entry cause problems sometimes. And I'm not a huge fan of making it harder to get into our industry. And I know that is a solution, but I don't think it's the right solution. I think that making it easy to get into this industry and making it easier to learn in this industry would be how I would fix it rather than making it harder to get in.
We're coming for it. I don't want to talk overly, yeah, that's why we're here today. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve, but I think, I
think you're a great example of that. And what you do and your vision and your purpose with your business, I think is just absolutely spectacular.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that it's all leadership, right? And I think we've suffered from a bunch of, no offense to some of the boomers, but the boomers were so everything you said is true. But I also think there's been a general, a boomer really doesn't know how to train, mentor, and advise a millennial. So there's just been a huge gap. But I think we're going to turn the tide on that. I think this is going to emerge into. Anyway, I don't want to. And
I think that there is that paradigm shift that we've kind of talked about, but skirted around maybe a little bit. It's like, that's how they were raised too, right? It was like, that's their livelihood, right? You could get fired if you raised your hand and said you weren't doing enough, right? When I grew up, it was, I'm kind of bored. Like, can I do something else? Like, what else you got for me? I felt very comfortable doing that. Like, I don't think that generation had that luxury, right? If you weren't bored, if you weren't working hard, if you weren't doing what you were asked to do, and that became their currency, right? That became their, what made them valuable was their knowledge, not the sharing of the knowledge,
It's like everything about what I'm trying to do is like we respond to things we don't know with fear because we think we're so certain, and rather than being curious, right? And so like I literally was sitting on a plane with very successful millennials this weekend, and like listening to them talk about Generation Alpha, I was like, dude, you sound like a boomer. This is what they said about like you can't just dismiss a whole generation because they're different than you.
Yeah,
like, you got to meet them where they are. But it's leadership, like, and then we're so rigid. It's like, well, I don't want to work hard. Like, what do you sound exactly like our fathers? Like that was. It's not. It's just different. Anyway.
Well, and I think that it depends on the person, right? I mean, like my dad, because he had amazing mentors, I think he was an amazing mentor to a lot of people, not just me. And I think there's hundreds of people, dozens at least, if not hundreds of people that I think would say that about my father. So some of it's luck. Let's just be honest too.
We're sending this to Big Orren. No, yeah, for sure. We're sending this to Orren. I feel like I got to get Orren on here. So
okay, you should definitely get Orren on.
I would love. It would be so fun to do that. But I got to roll through my questions and get you out on time. You said it already, but I want to make sure if I ask it this way, you still say it. What makes Lisa Pickell unique?
Oh, I'm curious. Like I think I am an absolute lifelong learner that's very curious, and I think curious builds empathy and sympathy and all of those things. And I think that those are the bedrock and things that I wish for more people and how to move through the world.
I'm putting stubbornness in there because it came up
I think
earlier.
You should put stubbornness in there too.
That's all right, cool. Hey, you got to be stubborn. You can't get anything done if you're not stubborn. Like it's
totally.
Okay, give us your book list. Top 3, top 5. If you need to think about it, you can send it to me later. But this is one of my favorites. What was the most impactful books you read?
Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. You know, my favorite way to read books is actually when I'm traveling. I love to travel, right? So that's like I volunteer and I travel. Those are my things. And my favorite thing about traveling is reading about whether it's an author from there or reading about that place, either history or, whatever that looks like from wherever it is I'm going. So it kind of varies on where I'm going and what I'm doing. But that is generally my favorite book at the time is what am I reading about? Because where am I going next?
So this is such a moment for us because we just went to the Dominican Republic and I've served a mission in Haiti, and I was like, I'm the opposite of you. I went there and I was like, I just want to know the story. Who settled this land? How did it get this way? How is Dominican Republic one of the most expensive, wealthy places in the world? And Haiti's over there in a civil war I, Kevin, go there and wonder these things, come back and do nothing. You, Lisa, go and read about it. And so what I'm going to do, because this is just me being smart, is every time I go somewhere, I'm going to call you. You're going to have to give me the TLDR because I'm not.
Some of his podcasts, like there's a million ways to take it in, right? But those are my favorite things to read generally.
Got it. Well, you'll have to give me you're going to have to give me your leadership list at some point. But okay, these ones are you don't have to answer all of them, but you can if you want to. So I'll rattle them off and I'll say them twice.
Wait, I'm going to stop you for a second because now you said specifically leadership books. I'm going to tell you I don't really like reading leadership books. I will.
Okay.
I know it's like weird, right? Like I've read some. I think they're fine, but I've never enjoyed reading leadership books.
And XYZ philosophy, something I'm fascinated with, and I don't know that you fall into this, but like I can't, my wife loves to read murder mysteries, can't engage. I love to read the business books, and you're entering a new like history. So very interesting.
No, I love history. I love nonfiction. Like I love reading about the world. Like I love biographies. I love all of those things. And if you think about biographies, those are kind of leadership books sometimes, but just reading about someone's opinion on how to be a great leader, I have I don't know why, but I have a really hard time with it. And there's always something in there that I like, but I generally feel like if the book is 300 pages, it could be 15.
Yeah.
Normally how I feel about leadership books.
Dude, I don't know. I can't remember what we put on these freaking podcasts for the trailer, but it's like, I'm not a reader, or I'm not a podcaster, but I'm going to do a podcast. I'm not an author, but I'm going to write a book. And I'm like I don't know if you know this, but when you go to write a book, they make you make it longer. They literally make you make, because it has to look a certain way on the shelf.
Yeah, that is how
I'm going to write the best 10 pages. Yeah, you're right. Wait, what about business? Is there any business books you like or appreciate, or those fall into the same category?
Kind of the same vein. I would say some are really good, and if I do read it, I usually pick something out of it, but I always feel a little bit annoyed that it took way longer to get to that than it needed to.
That's so. You're playing into my hand, Lisa. You're going to be. You're coming back. I'm sorry. You're going to have to come on. But wait, do you? And I think I kept using this quote, and I never know where it came from. I think it's School of Rock, like the best like, if you can't do, you teach. And if you can't teach, you teach PE. Have you heard that? Like, that's so accurate. I'm like very worried. I don't want to show up in the world as anything other than a businessman, but here I am podcasting. Anyway, so authors the same way. It's like, but at the same time, like, you know, Plato and Aristotle are philosophers. I'll get in. We're moving on. You got to give me. So I'm going to read these through and pick one or attack them all, and we can go line by line. So your favorite famous person, your least favorite famous person, the toughest season or period of your life. If you were the creator, ruler of the universe, figuratively, if you believed in that, and you could just wave your magic wand, you're not resource deprived, you could breathe any change into the world, what change do you make? That's it. Those are the questions.
I would say I like the last one. If I was going to breathe any change in the world, what would I do? And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, which I know doesn't help you from a podcast perspective, but it is that, like, how do we create more empathy, right? How do we work towards more curiosity, towards each other, towards the world, towards things we understand, certain things we don't understand, that I think would change the world and make it a better place. And I think that goes into education and learning and all the different ways that you can, you know, kind of the things that we've talked about. Like, it's not just about higher education. It's not about formal education. It's mentorship. It's, you know, associations. It's reading. It's curiosity. It's all of those things, right? And how can we make all of those things more accessible to more people?
Were you there for my business presentation?
Okay. I loved it. It was all over the place. It was very Kevin.
yeah, it was. Well, that's my whole gaining thesis to solving all the world's problems is through curiosity. So it's interesting. I was like, and it's funny because you preach that and I'm preaching that, and I'm finding like everything about that. I know I was going to say, sounds like a girl's reading her Bible and not going to church, which is interesting. That's a different war that I'm on. But it's like, I don't know in your reading if you've come across like the universal wisdom, it all just kind of it's just funny that we're coming to the same common understanding through very, very different channels. I think curiosity solves a bunch. That's super cool. I still think that woman's brilliant. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Riveting conversation. She will be back. We didn't even talk about her company. We couldn't squeeze it all in. So thanks for listening. If you like it, send it to your friends. If you don't like it, there should be a survey. I don't know if I have the survey yet, but there'll be a survey. I want to hear about it. And if you don't like it, I might bring you on and tell me why you don't like it, because we like to deal with these things right face to face. And like, my goal is to do better. I don't intend to be the greatest podcaster ever, but if you guys are going to invest your time listening, it ought to be good. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show, and we'll see you next time.